I just have some basic questions about the commissary. Do you know what the number of inmates, I guess, what does it average to that do not claim their commissary prior to being released?
We do report on the number of individuals who don't claim their commissary funds on an annual basis. So we do know that, and this is a stretch of time, that there are about 100,076, 719. I hope I said that right. But this is from, I believe, 2007 to present. Now, when we're talking...
Wait, $100,000 or 100,000 people? People?
No, accounts.
Accounts. Wow.
Accounts.
From 2007?
From 2007 to present. But then, just to let me confirm that I'm giving you the accurate breakdown, which is not right there. But what I do know is that on an annual basis, it looks like about $200,000 that are unclaimed funds for the individuals that are that have not picked up their funds. But I'm sorry, give me 1 second to get to the exact number.
So we have, so with respect to the specific accounts on what is the unclaimed funds, this we have up until August of 2024. But there are 137, again, this goes back to, as DC McCarty mentioned, 2007, 137,598 total accounts that have unclaimed funds. A vast majority of those are so $5 or less accounts for 30% of those. $10 to $30 accounts for 30%, and up to $100 is like 25. So the amounts that exceed $200 are very, very small. But that's the accumulative amount. And this is, these funds are sitting there, right? We're not using them. We want to work with the council to find a way to get rid of them, but they go back pretty far into the past as far as what's abandoned.
After the 120 days window, what happens with the funds?
The funds stay in this account and they can't be touched by the Department of Correction or anyone. But somebody is able to still actually claim those funds. So let's say someone does have funds from beyond 120 days post-release. And we actually have this communication up on our website as well. So they can go through the website and submit a request for the funds. But the formal process post the 120 days is that they can be provided in a check format. So the notion that we provide $200 in cash, after 120 days, all funds would go into a check format for the person, and the department would need a notarized letter indicating the request for the unclaimed funds. And again, that's only after the 120 days. Prior to the 120 days, or during that initial post-release period for those 3 months or 120 days, they would be able to receive the $200 or less in cash, and then the remainder of the funds in check format.
And what prevents DOC from having those funds or that check or whatever, in whatever format you wish to pay it out, ready? We know when somebody's being discharged, right? We have a date. I'm assuming there's a process, right, for discharging. Why wouldn't that money be available at discharge? Why would I have to claim it?
So, when someone is discharged, first, their discharge date isn't always known, especially for people who are detainees, and some people do leave directly from court. But just to highlight, there are funds available. So again, the $200 in cash that someone can receive is available immediately upon release at the Rikers Island Central Cashier, which they walk through upon release. They can stop at the window, which is open 24/7. So it is a 24/7 operation that they could receive their funds from a cashier at that window. If they are released from the courts as well, there are bail windows available that they could pick up their unclaimed funds as well from their commissary.
And by the way, I'm sorry, just for clarity's sake, a person who's discharged can also, at the time of discharge, get a check for funds that exceed $200. So it's not like you're limited to 200, then you have to claim it after. You can get that at the time, but only the cash is up to $200.
Is there a reminder post-release whenever possible to encourage folks to get their money?
Well, I'll answer your question this way. There are flyers throughout all of the facilities that do identify that someone can receive up to $200 in cash up to 120 days post-release. And within those flyers, they also indicate that they can come and pick up a check for remaining funds that are above the $200. With that, we also put that flyer on the tablet. We do have staff available throughout the facilities. So we have, I had mentioned the counselors that go and visit these areas that can help people, one, release funds prior to discharge. So they can release funds to family and loved ones if that was an option throughout the entirety of their incarceration and prior to leading up to their discharge. But those counselors can also support them in identifying how much funds are actually in their commissary account. So to give them a printout so that they're aware that they have funds in their commissary account, and that it would also further tell them verbally about how they can go and receive their funds post-discharge. So those counselors can give them kind of that human interaction or that human support. But once somebody is post-release, so once somebody is discharged in the community, we have this information up on our website in detail. There's actually an entire page dedicated to in the person in custody services of how they can claim their unclaimed commissary funds.
And additionally, on that same website, people can go on and check to see if they have and how much unclaimed funds that are there.
Yeah, I mean, I just assume that if I have $5 and I'm, I've spent 8 months, 2 years, whatever it is at Rikers, that I'm gonna leave as fast as possible. I might not think that $5 is enough to stop by the commissary, window. But it also doesn't benefit you to continue to accumulate, funds that are being held in perpetuity. So what is, I'm trying to figure out what measures you've taken to try to remediate this, right? Maybe having that money available so that when we're giving, I'm assuming if I'm an inmate and I've never been in Rikers, but so I'm gonna play a little bit here, but and imagine what it would look like. I'm leaving and I have to get my clothes that I came in with or whatever I'm gonna wear. I'm gonna grab my documents and the things that my belongings that I wish to take with me, and then I have to pass a certain area. So why wouldn't, I think it would make sense to have those funds readily available. Here's your stuff, have a good day. I wouldn't stop for $5. But again, it might not mean, this is not life-changing money, but the problem is that it continues to add up. And we have no way of communicating with folks. And I don't see anybody going on the website, quite frankly. Unless I left a lot of money there, there's no reason why I'm gonna go in there.
I mean, a couple of things to that. One, we share the concern. I mean, we really do. We don't use this money. We don't want this money. We're just concerned about, the bill and the issues of having this cash on site, but that doesn't solve the issue you just raised, right? So even if we have all this money, which presents a danger to anyone, again, if they do stop and you hand them $50,000, they have to have that in the account. That's a dangerous situation.
Is there a limit on how much you can have in commissary?
No.
No, there are individuals who do have thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in their account.
It's not a huge
limited.
percentage.
I'm assuming that's a very small percentage of folks.
It's a small percentage.
Yes.
Okay.
But also, I mean, we hope this doesn't happen, but it's also notable that if somebody does come back into our custody for any reason, that money automatically goes back into their commissary account that they had before. Obviously we don't want that to happen. We'd much prefer people don't come into our custody and come, and take their funds, but that is another, avenue. So it's not exhausted necessarily. It can be exhausted later on, but we do share those concerns. The problem with some of the aspects of the bill, I think, and one of the things you mentioned is giving the money to them kind of during this process. The problem is cash is actually a contraband in our prison, so we can't give it to them until in our jails until we have them discharged. So that's just one of the processes elements that we have to wait until they're out.
I mean, but there are many means of there are many ways to pay out, right? Electronically, via cards, via check. Have any of those options been exhausted?
But I'm sorry, we do these things. We do have this availability to do it.
Upon request, though.
But right, but that's at this discharge time.
And I mean, I do want to highlight again that when someone is a detainee being discharged and they're literally exiting Rikers to go to the bus that takes them off of Rikers Island, they pass the cashier window. So it is available, and at that passing of the cashier's window, and I understand the point that like you just may not stop, but it is in the concept of like it's being handed or available. It is right there and accessible. But I do agree that we equally want to see people receive their funds, and I do think that this is for all of us to really think
I
collectively.
just think that
how we
if
get
the
that.
$5 that I could care less about are becoming an inconvenience for you, that it will behoove you to figure out how to get me to claim those $5.
Honestly, I think this is a great conversation to have. We could share this offline and work out something that we think is fruitful and would solve that problem. Again, this is not an issue for us. We can't force someone to do it, but certainly we could explore every measure to try to get it so that we don't have these. Because again, they're not being used; they're just there.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.